What if I told you that everything you know, your freedoms, your struggles, your victories, has happened before? That the rise and fall of empires, the financial crashes, the revolutions, the wars, were not isolated events, but echoes of a script that keeps playing on repeat. History is a loop, not a straight line, not progress in the way we like to believe. The civilizations that stood where we stand now also thought they were different, that their knowledge, their technology, their enlightenment would save them. And yet, where are they now? The Roman Empire crumbled under corruption and overreach. The Great Depression led to global conflict. Every golden age was followed by collapse. And today we see similar fractures, economic turmoil, social unrest, power struggles, yet we act as if it's the first time. Why don't we learn? Why do we walk into the same disasters with our eyes wide open? Is it ignorance, arrogance, or something deeper, something embedded in human nature itself? This isn't just history. This is about you. The same patterns play out in relationships, careers, and personal struggles. We ignore the red flags, we repeat bad decisions, we chase short-term gains while setting ourselves up for long-term failure. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on the cycles of history. Why civilizations fall, why societies forget, why warnings go ignored. We'll explore the theories that prove this isn't random, but predictable. And most importantly, we'll ask, can we break free? Or are we doomed to repeat the past? Brace yourself. The truth isn't comfortable, but it's necessary. Imagine a lone scholar standing in the ruins of a once great city. He runs his fingers over the faded inscriptions on a broken wall, the last remnants of a civilization that believed it would last forever. This scene has played out countless times. The Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Romans, all gone. Their knowledge lost, their warnings ignored. Their people, just like us, thought they were special, that their fate would be different. But history doesn't care about exceptions. It follows a rhythm, a cycle, one that's been documented for centuries. One of the most intriguing theories, the Strauss-Howe generational theory, suggests that societies move through 4 predictable stages, or turnings. The high, a period of unity and prosperity after a great crisis. Institutions are strong. People trust their leaders. The awakening. A cultural shift begins. New ideas emerge. People start questioning authority. The unraveling. Institutions weaken. Division grows. Trust erodes. The crisis, chaos. A major conflict or collapse resets everything, and the cycle begins again. Look back at history. The American Revolution, the Civil War, the Great Depression, World War II, each about 80 years apart. And today, we're at the edge of another crisis. Philosopher George Santayana once warned, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." But it's not just about memory, it's about perception. We don't just forget history, we rewrite it. Governments reshape narratives to fit their agendas. Schools simplify complex truths into easy, digestible stories. Media focuses on the present, making everything feel new, disconnected from what came before. But the truth? We've been here before, and we'll be here again. Because it's not just about history, it's about human nature. People who lived in past civilizations were no different from us. They had ambitions, fears, dreams. They thought they were in control until they weren't. So what makes us believe this time is different? This time is different. That phrase has been uttered before every major collapse in history. Before every empire fell, before every financial bubble burst, before every war ignited. But it's never different. Not really. Why? Because human nature doesn't change. Take the recency bias, our tendency to believe that what's happening now will keep happening. If the economy is booming, we assume it'll stay that way. If we live in peace, we think war is impossible. If technology advances, we believe it will solve all our problems. It's an illusion, a dangerous one. We believe we're smarter than those who came before us. We have history books, data, AI, and advanced technology, but technology only amplifies human nature. It doesn't change it. Take the Roman Empire. It was the pinnacle of civilization. Wealthy, powerful, innovative. They had roads, aqueducts, central heating, even a form of banking. And yet they collapsed under the weight of their own success. Corruption, decadence, overspending, and political infighting. Sound familiar? Look at the US today. crippling debt, social division, power struggles, endless foreign conflicts. Just like Rome, a nation stretching itself thin, believing it's invincible. Turchin's cryodynamics predicts these collapses. It's a mathematical model that shows how societies rise and fall based on three factors. Social pressures. When people become too divided, society fractures. Economic inequality. When the rich control too much, the system destabilizes. Elite overproduction. When too many people fight for power, chaos erupts. History repeats not because we forget, but because we refuse to believe we're part of the cycle. We convince ourselves that we're unique, that we've evolved beyond the mistakes of our ancestors. But every generation has thought the same thing. And yet, here we are. So the question is, if we know the pattern, why can't we stop it? Knowing the pattern isn't enough. Even when we see the signs, we still walk into the same traps. Why? Because those in power benefit from our blindness, the role of power and corruption. History is a story written by the victors. Those in control decide which truths survive and which ones are buried. Every empire, every government, every ruling class has manipulated history to justify their rule. Look at elite theory, the idea that a small group always ends up controlling most of the power and wealth. Whether it's ancient monarchs, industrial tycoons, or today's billionaires, the pattern is the same. A small elite rises, consolidates control, and widens the gap between themselves and everyone else. Then, the inevitable happens. The system becomes unsustainable. People revolt. The empire collapses. And the cycle begins again. But there's another force at play, technology. The illusion of progress. We tell ourselves that technology makes us different from past civilizations, that the internet, AI, and global communication protect us from ignorance and manipulation. But what if technology is just another tool for control? Think about Marshall McLuhan's theory. The medium is the message. It means new technologies don't just inform us, they shape how we think. Social media doesn't just spread information, it changes human behavior. Today, we have more access to knowledge than any generation before us. Yet, misinformation spreads faster than truth. Attention spans are shorter. People are more divided than ever. Instead of learning from history, we're drowning in a flood of half-truths, distractions, and manufactured outrage. And this is why warnings go unheeded, lessons ignored. Every collapse has had its prophets, historians, philosophers, whistleblowers who saw disaster coming. They were ignored. Some were silenced, others ridiculed. Why? Because short-term gains always win over long-term stability. Governments focus on election cycles, not the next century. Corporations chase quarterly profits, not sustainability. Individuals seek comfort over sacrifice. It's the tragedy of the commons. When people act in their own interest, they destroy the shared resources that sustain them. We've seen this with overpopulation, climate change, economic bubbles, political corruption. Everyone assumes someone else will fix it, but no one does, until it's too late. And so the cycle continues. But does it have to? If history is a cycle, does that mean we're doomed to repeat it? Not necessarily, but breaking the cycle requires something rare. Awareness followed by action. Step 1. Recognize the patterns in your own life. History doesn't just repeat on a global scale, it happens on a personal level too. People fall into the same toxic relationships. They make the same financial mistakes. They repeat bad habits. The first step to breaking the cycle is to recognize it. Ask yourself, what mistakes do I keep making? What red flags have I ignored before? What lessons have I failed to apply? If you don't analyze your past, you're bound to relive it. Step 2. Learn to think in cycles, not lines. We've been trained to see progress as a straight path. Always forward, always improving. That's a lie. Life moves in cycles. Boom and bust. Rise and fall. Train yourself to see the signs of decline before they reach crisis levels. This applies to economies, politics, and even your personal relationships. Pay attention to increasing division and hostility in society, power becoming concentrated in fewer hands, people ignoring warning signs because this time is different. The earlier you spot a cycle, the better you can prepare. Step 3. Escape the illusion of short-term thinking. Most people react to the present. They chase what feels good now and ignore long-term consequences. This is why civilizations collapse. It's easier to delay hard choices than face them. To break free, train yourself to think beyond the next paycheck. the next election, the next trend. Ask, what will this decision look like in 10 years? Am I solving a problem or just postponing it? Who benefits from me staying distracted? When you start thinking in decades instead of days, your decisions will change. Step 4, control your own narrative. If history is written by the victors, that means someone else is writing the story you believe. Schools, media, governments, all shape how you think about the past, present, and future. Stop being a passive consumer of information. Question everything. Who benefits from this version of history? What's being left out? What agenda is being pushed? Read books that challenge your worldview. Study history from multiple perspectives. Seek out patterns, not just isolated facts. Step 5. Take action before crisis forces you to. Most people don't change until they have to. But the ones who survive and thrive are those who see the collapse coming before it happens. If the economy is overheating, diversify your income now. If society is fracturing, build strong local relationships now. If the world is becoming unstable, develop skills that make you adaptable. Waiting until the crisis hits is too late. History rewards those who prepare and erases those who don't. Can we break the cycle? Maybe. But it won't happen by accident. It starts with individuals, people who refuse to be blind followers of history. People who study the past, recognize the patterns, and act before it's too late. You have a choice. Ignore the cycle and hope for the best. Or learn from it and position yourself ahead of the collapse. The patterns are there. The signs are clear. What will you do with them? History is not just something that happened. It's something that happens over and over again. And every time people convince themselves that this time is different, it never is. Empires rise. They grow complacent. Corruption seeps in. People ignore the warnings. Collapse follows. And from the ashes, a new cycle begins. This is not a prophecy. It's not speculation. It's a pattern, one that has repeated for thousands of years. The only question is, will you see it before it's too late? The vast majority won't. They'll follow the same script, believing they're immune to history. They'll dismiss the warnings, stay distracted, and cling to the illusion of stability until the moment it shatters. But a few will wake up. A few will recognize the cycles, not just in the world, but in their own lives. A few will stop making the same mistakes, will break free from short-term thinking, will prepare while others remain blind. The world is heading toward another turning point. We don't know exactly when or how, but the signs are here. They've always been here. The only question that matters is, what will you do differently this time? Think carefully, because history is watching and it never forgets.